Hello friends, thank you once again for joining me on the Supreme Court Historian channel. We will be today looking at the early days of the Supreme Court. This is part of the non-judicial history, the operational history, if that is the right term for it. And it is the inauguration of the Supreme Court and its early days is what we will quickly take a glance at. We start with the constitutional provisions. Part 5 of the Constitution of India deals with the Union. Chapter 4 in that part deals with the Union judiciary. Articles 124 to 147. Article 124 is the one that establishes the Supreme Court. There shall be a Supreme Court of India constituting of a Chief Justice and not more than 7 other judges, so 8 judges in all, until Parliament prescribes a larger number. This is something interesting to note. The Constitution expected that the Parliament would increase the number of judges gradually as time wore on, as indeed proved to be the case. Anyway, 8 judges is what was prescribed by the Constitution, Article 124. We actually began with 6 judges, Chief Justice plus 5, and 2 were further nominated later down the road. And this is a picture from the day of the inauguration of that of the Supreme Court, 28th January 1950, inside the Chamber of Princes in Parliament House. That is the current Parliament building. As you're aware, there is a new one being built, and this will become a nice museum. The 6 gentlemen that we can see on in the top row on the bench are the 6 original judges of our Supreme Court. The Chief Justice is third from right in the colorful turban from his native Gujarat. The turban has been described variously as somewhere between pink and purple, and the brother judges alongside him. Sitting in front of them are the Chief Justices of the 13 high courts in India at that time. 13 high courts: Allahabad, Bombay, Madras, Calcutta, Mysore, Madhya Bharat, Nagpur, Saurashtra, Orissa, Punjab. Pepsu had its own, Patiala, and East Punjab States Union. So those 13 Chief Justices were present on this occasion. Plenty of protocol. The Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Cabinet Ministers, the diplomats, and of course members of the bar of the Federal Court, of the erstwhile Federal Court, were also present. If we look at the timeline of these events, we of course know that 26th November 1949 is when we adopted, enacted, and gave ourselves the Constitution, which came into force on 26th January 1950, 2 months after the adoption. And of course, the Supreme Court was created that day. On that day, the Chief Justice of that erstwhile Federal Court was Mr. Harilal Jekisandas Kania. He swore in Dr. Rajendra Prasad as our first president, and then President Prasad in turn swore in Sir Harilal Kania as the first Chief Justice of India. The Federal Court used to sit, as I said, in that same Chamber of Princes. That itself was inaugurated on 6th December 1937. It was created under the Government of India Act 1935. Then, of course, it ended its tenure on 26th Jan 1950. And on this inauguration day, the Supreme Court was inaugurated, as I said, with the Chief Justice and 5 Pune judges. The word Pune, in case anybody is interested, it's formed of Pew and Ne. Pew as in after, and Ne as in born. So born after, or after the Chief Justice, or subordinate to the Chief Justice, or associate justice, as they call them in the United States Supreme Court. Now, in one of the books I mentioned in the sources video, Supreme but Not Infallible, edited by Kripal Desai et al., there is a wonderful essay by a journalist named Inder Malhotra. Mr. Malhotra was a young journalist at the time of the inauguration of the Supreme Court. it was his duty to cover the court for the UNI. And he has written this very readable essay, Present at the Creation, present in that Supreme but Not Infallible book. And he tells us that the early days saw the Supreme Court having very little on its plate. The court's hours were 10 a.m. to noon and then 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. All this, of course, changed as soon as Mr. A.K. Gopalan filed a habeas corpus petition against the state of Madras, contesting his detention under the Preventive Detention Act. Although the act was not held unconstitutional, one of its provisions was held ultra vires. That provision dealt with, actually allowed the detaining authority to not inform the person arrested the reason for his detention. That provision was thrown out by the Supreme Court, after which many individuals who had been arrested under that provision petitioned the Supreme Court for their release, which is when these hours were also thrown out of the window. Justice Mahajan was the vacation judge during the first summer vacation of our Supreme Court, and he's the one who dispensed with that lunch break of 2 hours, and he also did not stop hearing cases at 4 p.m. He continued until that day's quota was finished. There's a very interesting story by Mr. Malhotra given in that essay about an elderly Sikh gentleman, more than 80 years old, who argued before Justice Mahajan, also a Punjabi, in the Punjabi language. A very rare occurrence. Of course, the Supreme Court is expected to conduct its business in English, but on that occasion, Justice Mahajan allowed that gentleman to argue his case, and he was set free. He was apparently arrested outside his home, sitting under a tree on a cot, 80 plus, frail, nearly blind, and he was arrested saying that he was a threat to peace and security and had gone underground, and he was released by Justice Mahajan. Anyway, that is one of the many such interesting incidents in that early Supreme Court. It stayed in that campus, in that Chamber of Princes, until 1958. The new campus was begun in October 1954 on a 17-acre plot. This is what it looks like now, of course. It was a triangular plot, and the building was designed by one Mr. Devdalikar, an architect heading the CPWD at that time. He envisaged a building that looks like the scales of justice, depicting that. The right wing, the scale on the right, contains the office of the Attorney General and the bar and the Supreme Court library, and the left wing contains the offices of the Supreme Court, the various courts where the benches sit. And at the top of the image on the left, which I have taken from Google Maps, you can perhaps spot, when the labels are turned on, the Supreme Court Museum. Not many people are aware of it, and I would strongly urge you to visit it when you get the opportunity. So anyway, that was about how the Supreme Court spent its first few operational years. The number of judges kept on increasing, and I want to keep this statistic in mind so that whenever we reach that landmark, we will know that number of judges kept on increasing over the years, from 8 to 11, 14, 18, 26, 31, and now we have 34 judges, 33 plus the Chief Justice, and multiple benches, unlike the United States Supreme Court, which sits as one single 9-judge bench. So anyway, that was a quick look at some of the early days of our Supreme Court. Next video onwards, we will start looking at the landmark cases with, as promised, A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras. Hope to see you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.